I'm Elena Buzan. I'm coming from the Citizens Science Committee, and I would like to represent you today how the stakeholder engagement in using the genomic data is important across the Europe, and also this open data, like was Tom presenting, how it's really important that this data can be used not just by researchers, but also the other stakeholders who are interested in the biodiversity genomics. So next slide. So in the Citizen Science Committee, first of all, we would like to define who are the stakeholders in biodiversity genomic and who could use a high-quality reference genome for the applied genomic research. And by definition, there are all individuals, group, or organizations that are involved in or they somehow affected with the project or research in biodiversity genomic. So it means they have the ability also to influence the implementation and the decision-making regarding the genomic research. So we define stakeholders in a couple of groups. First group belongs to civil society organization and local community members. Then we move to another stakeholders groups which belong to different research organizations who can use genomic data and also the different experts in the different scientific field. Then the special groups goes to also to citizen scientists, to people who would like to be involved in the scientific process. Then another group belongs to the private company, so the company who can even process the genomic data, and this can be business or even industry, or do some kind of services regarding the genomics. The last part belongs to the public authorities, local government, and the public institution. And of course, special part goes to also the right holders, which are indigenous people. Next slide, please. So why is the engagement of the stakeholders also in the biodiversity genomics is really important for many reasons. In our committee, we recognize four important, I would say, cluster and the reason why we have to engage stakeholders from the beginning in the genomic research. One of these is that we build on capacity and knowledge development across the community, because by this we are improving the genomic literacy across the different stakeholder groups. Another part belongs to the accessibility and sustainability of different genomic projects, because by sharing our technical expertise, we can articulate also the values, how the genomic is really important for the biodiversity conservation. The next part goes to economic efficiency. So by working with the stakeholders, we can strengthen science policy interface in the different area where genomics can influence biodiversity conservation, bioeconomy, and many other aspects, even health. And the last one goes to social equity and cohesion, because in this way we can identify the areas which we agree or disagree with the different stakeholder groups, and we can work on this as researchers to improve it and make a consensus. Next slide. So at the Citizen Science Committee, we recognize 4 important steps how we can better engage stakeholders. First of all, for us was quite important that we identify the stakeholders which are interested or have some influence regarding the biodiversity genomic and the high quality reference genome. Then we know that we need to prioritize these stakeholders. So there is a different group of the stakeholders with different interests and different influence into the biodiversity genomic. And having this kind of stakeholder prioritization and mapping, we can start to develop communication plan, and we can really work on efficient communication with the different stakeholders regarding their interests and their influence. And then we can come also to efficient stakeholder engagement. Next slide, Lisa. So what we did in this last year, we tried to map for the first time the stakeholders in the biodiversity genomic, which can be interesting by using a high quality reference genome. And this was done with the help of the member of the ERGA pilot project, which I am assuming we will heard a lot in the next talk. We organized the workshop, and in this workshop, 39 researchers all across the Europe participate. They are from 25 different European countries, and 6 members of the Citizen Science Committee serve as a mediator, helping the researchers to recognize their stakeholders, to identify them, to create a stakeholder list, which they think that they are could be interested in the research. And of course, then after that, they can prioritize the stakeholders in a way they, according to their interest and influence in the project, they will going to use their reference genome for the future applied genomic research on the different aspects of biodiversity conservation, health, or the bioeconomy. Next. So just to show a little bit of results, so we successfully mapped 385 stakeholders in the countries you can see on the left side of the slide. So these are the countries who participate. A little bit more than 100 stakeholders which were recognized for international, a little bit less than 300 were national or local stakeholders. And we slightly go a little bit in deep of this kind of analysis regarding who were the national and local stakeholders according to their interest and influence. We try to map them into the 4 groups. So the stakeholders who were recognized as the researchers that are important for collaboration. Then another group was the stakeholders who are important just in the way that we consult them, or we just inform them regarding the research, or we just would like to involve them, or the researcher already involved them into the project. And then we map these different countries who will participate according to the governmental budget allocation for research and development. So it means how much country gives for the research and development of annual basis. And then we have a 2 group of the countries, one with a high budget allocation, and another cluster belongs to the countries to the low budget allocation. And you can see from this bar chart that there was really significant differences that in the country with a high budget allocation, most of the researchers decide that it's good to mainly consult some group of the stakeholders. Comparing to the country with the low budget allocation, they put less on consulting and much more on informing and even though involving stakeholders in the research. And then the next slide. So what is our next step? And the next step, we will try to map the stakeholders across the Europe who have some interest or influence in the biodiversity genomic with the help of the whole ERGA community. And then we would try to also develop some kind of communication engagement plan and communication way how to communicate with the different group of the stakeholders. And one of the first tasks which is in front of us is a work with the local community. This is the first task we would like to work in this direction, how to better involve local community into the biodiversity genomics. And the last slide. So at the end, I would like to thanks again to the all members of the ERGA pilot project for their contribution in this workshop and for the stakeholder mapping. I would like to thank all the members of the Citizen Science Committee. Like I said, there are not many of us, but we are all quite engaged in working in this direction, and you are kindly invited also to contribute to our committee if you're interested in our work. Thank you.